Welcome back for chapter 2. This is going to be on security logging and monitoring. All right, so we're going to do a little bit of explanation and a little bit of walkthrough, and we're going to tailor this towards the AWS Security Specialty exam, right? So this is going to focus on logging and monitoring. This will provide some step-by-step instructions, configuring some centralized logging using all sorts of tools like CloudWatch, Lambda, S3, and everything through the management console, right? We could do this with Terraform, but that would be a little bit too abstract. So let's go for it. So centralized logging with Amazon CloudWatch. So in AWS environments, centralized logging involves aggregating logs from various services into applications in a single centralized location. This approach facilitates easier monitoring, troubleshooting, and compliance auditing. So what's some key components, right? Amazon CloudWatch Logs. Let's go over here. So you can find this here in the search bar, or you can go over here and look through, maybe it's management and governance. Yeah, management and governance, the CloudWatch. So here you'll find CloudWatch, which collects and stores logs from AWS services, applications, and custom sources, right? Within this, you'll have log groups, okay? And within this, you'll have log streams, right? These help organize logs for efficient management and retrieval. Then you have CloudWatch agents. Let's find this. Well, a CloudWatch agent is a special automated tool that will be installed on a resource, say an EC2 instance, and it'll collect system-level metrics and logs. So you can see how your resources are being managed. That means your compute, your memory, and then it'll send that to your logs manager. Then you have identity and access management. This will help manage permissions for log access and agent operations so it can operate on those resources. And then you have an optional S3 for storage. So this will be for long-term log archival and integration with other analytics tools. So here's some security and compliance considerations. Centralized logging is pivotal for security monitoring and compliance adherence. The benefits include that it offers enhanced visibility. So this provides a unified view of systems and application activities. And we'll have this resource here so you can see this at a certain time. All right? We'll add that to the list when we post the video. You have incident response. This is what facilitates rapid detection and analysis of security events and incidents. You have compliance auditing. So this is where it supports regulatory requirements by maintaining comprehensive log of records. So best practices. This includes least privilege access. So you have to ensure your IAM roles and policies on those agents grant only necessary permissions. On the agents, on the CloudWatch, it's very complex. You have data protection. So when your logs are coming from your resources, they're being transmitted. You have to make sure that at rest and in transit, they have to be encrypted. This is to safeguard sensitive information. Then you have retention policies. So this goes back to compliance. When you do this, you have to define log retention periods in alignment with compliance mandates, right? And this will focus on your lifecycle management and be able to help you optimize better for your CloudWatch. So you see here, best practices for logging in Amazon EKS. This has a lot of information about how you organize and aggregate those logs. And finally, you'll have monitoring and alerts. So you'll implement CloudWatch alarms to notify stakeholders of anomalous activities. So we're going to practice some implementation steps and we'll help to build on the foundational steps and consider enhancements for robust and centralized logging. Right? This will include automating deployments using, let's say, System Manager to automate the installation and configuration, structured logging, so you can adopt structured formats like JSON. This will be to facilitate easier parsing and analysis. Then you'll have integration with analytics tools, right? So you can forward the logs to Opensearch, which is a AWS service, or any third-party SIM solution for advanced analytics and visualization. And then you can also talk about cross-account logging, right? So implementing cross-account log aggregation will allow you to set up centralized logging in an account and configure log subscriptions to work accordingly. So how is this relevant to the AWS Security Specialty? Well, understanding centralized logging is crucial for understanding the exam domains, right? That means the domain one, that will be the incident response, so utilizing logs to detect, investigate, and remediate security incidents. logging and monitoring. That means designing and implementing logging solutions that support security, monitoring, and compliance. And then you have data protection. So then you'll ensure that log data is protected through appropriate encryption and access controls. Okay. So by integrating these insights and best practices into your centralized logging strategy, you'll enhance your AWS security posture and be better prepared for the AWS Security Specialty exam. So let's go back to the original, right? So we're at CloudWatch. Went through this through the hamburger, or well, not the hamburger, but the dice set. Went to management governments. All right, click CloudWatch. So on the left side, we'll click logs, right? Log groups, which we're at. Create log groups. Then we'll enter a name for the log group. We'll say centralized dash logs. And then set the retention. Well, we can set it to 1 day. Log class, this is the lifecycle. Standard is fine. Standard does cost more. And the KMS key arm, this will be for encryption. And then you can set tags for your project, for your team, for your company. And then click create. All right, so let's do point of contact. What is it? Alex DevOps photo at gmail.com. Course AWS Security Specialty, and then name practice. All right, so click create. Okay, so we just created this. All right, so let's go into the log, and then from here, let's create a log stream. All right, so we'll call this EC2 app logs. All right, we'll click create on this, and then we'll need to create an instance. All right, we'll create an instance, which if you're at this point, you already know how to create one. Let's launch an instance. Click launch an instance. Let's call this logging instance practice. Okay. Amazon Linux, free, 65 tier, T. Yeah, I'm going to leave this unencrypted. And then security group. I already have one configured. Yeah, we'll just use the default. Storage, that's nice and light. Okay. Oops. Oh, I do need a key pair. Okay. Pipeline plumbers. Okay, we'll launch this. All right. So we'll go to view this. All right. So this is pending. What we want to do is get into the instance. Connect. Let's SSH into it. All right. So oops. Connect. All right. Let's try this. Oh, gosh. Let's try this. SSH level followers. What? Oh, okay. Gosh. Wow, this is a mess. Okay. Clear. Okay, let's try this. Let's just try and copy this directly. Wow, this is a mess. Why is this not? Oh, let's try this. Why is this? I'm not sure why my keyboard. Okay, let's try Sessions Manager. Oh, Sessions Manager is not online. Oh, let's try Instant Connect. Let's try and connect it using Private Connect. All right. Failed to connect, of course. All right, let's try. So it's running, yeah. So we should be able to connect. Let's try and connect with the public IP. Holy moly. Failed to connect. Error establishing. All right, let's go in here. Save this. Actions. Networking. Manage IP address. Let's close this up. Okay. Why is this not working? Huh. This is very interesting. Okay, so this is not coming in. Okay. This is the troubleshooting part. Give it a moment or two for me to think through this. All right, so to connect to this, this is running. It's public DNS. Let's close this. Let's close this. Let's close this. Let's close this. Okay. This is public. Oh, this is public. No, that's a private IP. All right, let's see. Let's find public again. Yeah, this is the public IP. Okay. Let's go. Let's see the network security. Let's see the security groups. I think we use the default. Inbound rules allows all. Let's see. Source. Anywhere IPv4. All traffic. So let's go back to custom. Let's add rule. HTTP. CP. Anywhere. Oops. Existing reference. So it should be all traffic. Existing reference group. So let's cancel this out. Okay, let's see. Outbound rules. More restrictive. Yeah, so this should be letting me in. Probably don't have a VPC set up. Okay. Networking. Domestic IP. Patch network interface. Let's see. No network interfaces. Does not mention following. Does not have ENA Express. So this is probably going to cause a problem. Yeah, this is. Okay, so essentially what you do is get into this instance, which I'm not able to do, right, via SSH. Let me try and connect it one more time and see if I'm missing something. SSH, open SSH. Oh, I need to get putty, don't I? Ah, crap, 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 crap. Um, that's okay. All right, let's try and connect. I'm trying to connect via my command line. Let's try this. Let's see if this connects. All right, so I'm going to move on a little bit more just because there's something I'm missing here. But essentially, you're supposed to be able to configure this to attach the SSM agent or the CloudWatch agent in this through SSH. And then from there, the agent will be able to come in and start the agent. You'll make sure that the IAM roles are configured. And then you can set this up to navigate for anything on this EC2 will be able to deliver logs. So we'll see. Hmm. Oh, so where am I? Huh. Let's see. There's last CloudWatch. Watch. That's invalid choice. Okay, so I'm getting closer to this. But we're going to beat up some time here. Okay, so let's move on a little bit. So we can go to Lambda logs, right? So Lambda logs are a bit of a deeper mechanism that's associated with CloudWatch. Okay, the goal is to effectively monitor, analyze, and manage logs generated by AWS Lambda functions, which are serverless and event-driven log functions that operate in your cloud environment. And you can do this using CloudWatch. So it ensures a robust observability and streamlined debugging process. So AWS Lambda, let's go find this. So Lambda, you can find this in the GUI here, or let's see. I would look for Lambda in this, no, compute. It's possible. Lambda, there we go. So run code without servers. All right. So Lambda automatically can capture logs generated during function executions and send them to CloudWatch Logs, right? So these are the logs, what they encompass, all right? And we'll have this in the notes, right? This includes systems logs. So that would be start, end, report, lines that provide metadata about function executions, like duration, memory usage, and request IDs. Okay. And I'll show you what that resource will look like here. All right. So you'll definitely want to hold on to this. And it'll have application logs. So this will be custom logs generated by your function code using standard output methods. So think console.log in Node.js or print in Python, right? So by default, each Lambda function has an associated log group in CloudWatch named slash AWS slash Lambda slash whatever that function's name is. Okay, so we'll go back to Lambda and close this. We're going to close that, this, close this. Okay, so we'll go back to Lambda. Okay, so do I have anything that's actually running? I have no Lambdas. Okay, So simple Lambda, you'd want to create this here, name it, right? My Lambda, right? Then you select the architecture code that's going to run. Typically, my code will be in Python. So usually you go to 3.9 or 3.10. Um, and then set up the execution roles, right? Use an existing role, which I have one here. And then we'll go into the configurations. So I'd set up tags, VPCs, encryption. You would want to check up encryption, okay? And then you could do code signing for security as well, right? Since I don't have one, you'd have to create that as well. All right. And then from here, you would create this. We're going to go back and you'll have your dashboard here, right? So it'll look like, I'll give you a snapshot of this. All right. So AWS Logging, let's see if I have a good image from this. Well, these are walkthroughs. All right. So this will give you an idea of what some of the Lambda will do, especially the ETL functions with glue. And then you go down here and see what you can do about observability within this, right? So you would create this to send over and click on CloudWatch again, back here. And you would go back to, okay, I believe it's monitors. I see, where do I see monitors? Oh, there's dashboards, okay. And the dashboard, so you'd have the automatic dashboard, and then you could see if it's in your automatic dashboard. All right, so let's see. Lambda, oh, or you could create a dashboard. CloudWatch, that would be it. Lines, next. So you see your Lambda. Then you could click here for your functions that are going on within a Lambda and set this along with the log group that goes along with it. Right? And then once here, then you could click on the actual dashboard itself. Let's see this. So your dashboard would be here, and then you could start running queries. All right? So where would that be on here? Oh, all right, let's do this. Let's see the gauge. Lambda, Lambda. Okay, let's create these widgets. Set the gauge from the options tabs. Min, 0, 10. Where's the sun? Nice value from the most recent period, time range. Okay, create the widget. Okay. All right. So then, let's see, we can be able to select, we can save this. Autosave. No, I don't need to do that. So you can edit these at a certain point. You can look at the logs here within this. Some AI hell. Okay. All right. Okay. And then where's the filter? Why don't I see filter? All right. Why am I not seeing this? Okay, let me see if I can go to an automatic dashboard because I don't think I have anything that's running. All right. So from here, see, you can filter as much as you need, right? So EC2, which is this one, an alarm stage based on the data. You can have alarm recommendations for this. And the data, you can update this, right? Let's say we cut this for 1 day. Okay, so at a good point here, you'd be able to do a lot from your full dashboard, right? We're going to go for your dashboards. No, let's see. Let's see insight. See the log insights. And from here, you can see your log insights, and you can run queries to analyze the logs. All right. So you have this one here is fields, timestamp, and it goes message, log stream, and you can support, and it's yes. So the message side at log stream at the log, then the timestamp descending limit 1000. Let's do limit 20. Let's run that query. Oops. Select the logs. Okay, run the query. And there's nothing going to be found here, right? But this query would retrieve the latest 20 logs for events for your Lambda function, or both of your centralized and the Lambdas. All right. So AWS Lambda provides advanced logging controls that allow for more granular and structured logging. So you can have a structured JSON, right? So that would enable structured logging in a JSON format to facilitate easier parsing, right? And analysis. This can be configured in the Lambda console. Okay. Under, let's see, where's my Lambdas? We have my Lambdas. Where was this at? Right at the dashboard. I don't think I have one that's fully created, do I? That's the problem. So if you had the function, I mean, this is your dashboard here, right? So let's see. This is going to be, it should be here, right? So you can see the metrics that are measured here by what should be delivered from your Lambda. And you should be able to click in once created. We don't have any application, so it's not going to work right now, right? But in theory, you go to configuration, you go to monitoring and operations tools, right? And you could have log level configurations, right? So you could adjust the verbosity of the logs so that you could look for errors, info, debug without modifying functional code. And this would be useful for isolating issues in different environments, right? Then you could have custom log groups, so where you could direct logs from multiple functions to a single custom log group. I think it's over here. Yeah, it's not going to be in this because I didn't fully configure it. Okay, that's okay, right? This will be good for multiple Lambda functions and simplifying your monitoring, right? So there's some best practices. Use logging libraries. Okay, you can use AWS's Lambdas, power tools to standardize and enrich your logs with contextual information like correlation IDs and environment variables and details. Let's see. Okay. All right. So here would be a good tool that you can use. I'll include that. Okay. Then you'll have, you can set retention policies, right? So within that, you could set what I showed you earlier about constructing that. You can set those retention periods for log groups to manage storage costs and comply with data retention policies. And you could implement alerts. So you can configure alarms here. Well, let's go for all alarms, right? And these alarms and alerts will be able to help you, one, be notified of anomalies or errors, detect them in the logs, and then enable incident response. Okay, so you can click that create alarm and then use the CloudWatch metric that you're going for. Okay, and then you can secure your log data, right? So you ensure that your IAM role associated with the Lambda functions have the minimum necessary permissions, which I showed you. You create your function, runtime, where is it at? Your existing role. This is where you're at, right? So this is here to least privilege. So if you implement these, you'll be able to utilize the best features of Lambda and CloudWatch and have a robust logging and monitoring setup that aligns with the security exam. Okay, so remember, in the Lambda console, you're going to want to stick with the function, okay? And any functions you create, you'll be able to monitor from here and adjust them. You create this, okay? Remember to use this. You can also use a blueprint if you have code that's already functioning. This is very basic stuff right here that's functional Lambda code. All right. And then you'll be able to select the log group that we created earlier on in CloudWatch Logs. And then you can run queries in those CloudWatch Logs in the insights, right, which would be here. Okay. And so the basic code I showed would show how to you can limit the 20 most recent entries. Okay. All right. So next up, we're going to go into Amazon Inspector. Okay. So what is Inspector? AWS Inspector is an automated vulnerability management service that continuously scans your AWS workloads for software vulnerabilities and unintended network exposure. It supports scanning for EC2 instances, ECR container images, and AWS Lambda functions. Let me give you some documentation you can look at here, and you can get set up for this, right? So with the EC2 instances, it assesses for known vulnerabilities and network reachability. For ECR container images, it'll scan images upon push and periodically for those same vulnerable or similar vulnerabilities. And then for AWS Lambda functions, it'll evaluate function code and then look for dependencies or security issues. Okay, and then let me get some documentation that you can see is available here. All right, so this is the inspector scan that you could have for your multi-cloud environment, and then your inspector scan integration with Security Hub. Okay, so findings would be consolidated and then can be integrated into Security Hub, and then with EventBridge, you can have event-driven situations for centralized monitoring and automated responses. Okay, and I'll include some of that information in the documentation over here. Okay, so let's get over here to Inspector. Okay. So one, you can look it up here, right? Or you can go to the 9-side die security and then Amazon Inspector. Okay. Now I think this is going to cost, see, 15-day trial. All right. So basically, if you click get started, you can activate Inspector. And so this is going to cost. All right. So that's why I'm very hesitant to click this because you don't want to get a bill from AWS saying you left something running. But see, no, I just showed that. Didn't I? No, I didn't. Okay. So this is one you're going to use. No, I did get it earlier. Okay, that's okay. All right. So that's how you get started right here, right? So when you activate, you can shut this up to enable scanning for EC2, ECR, and Lambda. Okay. And then upon activation, Inspector will automatically discover supported resources and initiate continuous scanning. So we already have an EC2 launched, right? We got the name, we got the AMI, the free links, the instance size, which was T2 micro. We added the key pair because it warned us. And then we had the security group setting up for open for all, right? And Inspector will automatically point that out and show like this is not a good thing. And at that point, we go to SSM. So let's see if we can SSM into this. So Sessions Manager we'll cover a little bit later, but this is a secure way to log and enter your resources. Okay. Making two, enter this for your logging, and it'll have, doesn't have a, oh, wow, because I didn't get the agent on there. It's okay. Okay. Let's connect. Let's see. Sessions Manager, just in time mode, moving to 0. Let's try it for free. Let's get started. All right, let me pause this. Okay, so I was unable to register that, which is interesting. Okay. Oh, man. So this is where it gets interesting. So let's see. Fleet Manager. Let's see. Let's take a look at this. Let's see if it's a managed instance. Oh my goodness. Let's see what the pricing is on this. No additional charge. 1,000. Yeah, that's fine. Let's get started on it. Let's get started. We have unmanaged instances. That makes sense. Cancel. Okay, let's go back and get started with, let's see, 15-day trial. You only pay for what you use. Let's see if we can start the trial. Deep inspection. All right. So activate inspector. All right. So one of the problems is that I'm going to need another account to serve as a delegated administrator. So that's going to be an issue for this. Okay. But essentially, this is going to be for something that's organization wide, where you can install this SSM agent on your actual EC2 that can do certain things as far as monitoring what you're doing on that EC2. If you're trying to update the security, update any packages, update any applications that might be running, you can do that for the instance. All right, so in here, you would basically be able to quick setup for this, and then verify in Inspector that the EC2 is being scanned and is healthy and will be listed with a status. And then you would ultimately have an inspector rating on your front page as well in one of these widgets, okay? So I apologize for the frustration. So Inspector would, at that point, continuously monitor your instance for vulnerabilities and network exposure. Because we have 0.0.0 open as inbound and outbound, then that would be available. All right. So Inspector can also automatically scan container images in ECR. This means that it can push an image to ECR. So it can tag it, it can push it, and after tagging the Docker image, it'll push it to your repository, right? So you can enable scanning for this in the GUI. Okay. So you can create a repository here or containers right here, ECR. So you could create the repository and then you just name it AWS container security, secure containers. Right. This is just a name for it. The tags, mutable means it can be changed, immutable means it can't be changed. And then you have your encryption. So you want to do an AWS managed or a customer managed key. So I didn't create a key and I'm not going to manage one. So we'll stick with AES and make it mutable. And then your scanning settings, these are going to be moved to, oh, looks like they've updated this. All right. And then you can have scanning set on push. Okay. And then you click create. All right. So we have this set pretty well. Let's go create. All right, so Amazon Inspector would then scan any image upon push and periodically thereafter. All right, and there will be documentation to cover this. So you could see that how that functions and why. And then you have Lambda functions, which you talk to. So anytime your Lambda function is deployed or updated, it can go anytime the code is updated, it can scan as well. All right. And then how do you view and find this? Right. So let's go back to Inspector. All right. Let's go to Inspector Classic and see if it has anything here. This is going to be the older version from a few years back. But basically, there's going to be a folder called Findings. And Findings is going to have your basic information set up there. And from there, you'll be able to filter and sort by things like severity. So your highs, your criticals, your highs, your mediums, your lows, your resource types like your ECR, your EC2, your Lambda, and then your status. Okay. And then at that point, you can get a detailed view by clicking on the finding to see the information. So that could be the affected resources and any remediation suggestions. Right. And then you can also centralize the security management portion by integrating this with Security Hub. All right. So let's go to the Security Hub, which I think we've already gone to in an earlier lesson. Okay. Go to Security Hub. Let's enable this. All right, so this is enabled. And then let's see. And this is how this would show integration with Security Hub. Okay. All right. And so this would be a JSON you could have in there as an example, what you would look for. Okay. And so there's ECR, the Lambda, EC2. Okay. So let's see. Controls. Maybe under configurations. As in accounts. Well, you'd have to do the insights probably in Inspector and then link it from there. All right, so Amazon Inspector has a 15-day free trial, which you just showed you. And then Security Hub, I think a 30-day free trial. And then this goes and includes EC2, ECR, and Lambda functions. So for EC2, it's charged per instance per month. So shut down your instances if you're not using it. ECR, this will be charged per image scan and per rescan. And then Lambda functions will be charged per function per month. Right? And so you can go to the pricing list and find out how that works. So let's go a little bit more into Inspector. All right. So Inspector is a fully managed vulnerability system that automatically scans your workloads. All right. So let's go back to show you the platform for it. Oh, all right. So on this, you should be able to click enable, but we're not able to. Try and activate it again, see if I need it or not. I don't know why I would need it. Okay, so AWS will create a service link role with all permissions for this, and then it should be able to activate it, show it, and have a dashboard. There we go. Okay. Okay, so here we go. It's activated. All right, so the first scan is underway, right? So we can go to EC2. We're not going to do that. And then if we want to, we could create a new instance to see how that goes, right? We go to ECR. We could do that as well. All right, so let's see if we can clear out some of this real estate. Clear this. We're going to keep that. Keep that. We're going to keep that. Let's see. Keep that. Okay. So have one repository. That's fine. Yeah, so you would go and look at your coverings, right? So if we want to look at this, you're an inspector. We just need to go by findings by, this is the overall findings. This is the vulnerabilities. This would be the by instance, by containers, container repos, Lambda functions. There's not really anything because I don't have anything in here, right? And then you could export these findings, create suppression rules if there were issues. Like if you had an issue with an instance that had an error because it might be exposed to a public cloud, but you didn't need it for anything public, you could just suppress that finding. Like it's all going to be run on AWS's private network, then you would be fine with that. All right, and then you can do from the findings, right? You could sort anything that's high, critical, low, and then use EventBridge to trigger this, right? So let's see, EC2 scanning settings. Let's see, scan mode, hybrid, agent based. Yeah, so I would need to have this agent set up. There's a whole bunch of other stuff that I would need to configure. And you can update your suppression rules, description, add a filter for it. All right, see all these different ways it can be suppressed. And there would be multiple reasons. You could suppress all your lows with the severity if that's not important, and you'd be okay. All right. So after the trial ends, you will build, right? So the best bet to go would be, let's see, dashboard. We're an inspector, general settings. There we go. I'm going to deactivate it. Deactivate, and it should be good to go. All right. So key points would be EC2 scanning requires SSL agents and IAM roles. ECR scanning is automatic upon push to the repo. Lambda function scanning, it scans the code and the dependencies. CVE detection uses up-to-date vulnerability database that would be good for your code. And then your integration, right? It integrates with Security Hub and EventBridge. And your risk scores. This is prioritized based on the severity of the risk to your environment. All right. So make sure you look at the white papers and the AWS documentation to get more fully fleshed out. Okay, so next up, and we're going to clear some of this. Okay, so next one, we're going to go Athena. All right, and you can find this here. All right, this is going to be analytics. So you click on the 9 circles, analytics, Athena. All right, so before executing queries, specify an S3 bucket to store your query results. Okay, so let's open up the hand. So look at the pricing as well. Okay, $5 per terabyte, 30 cents per DPU, and then Spark Apache Spark calculations. This is going to be a lot. Okay, so let's see what's on query editor, notebook. So there's a lot of workflow administration tools that you can use here to make this run a lot more efficiently. Okay, so let's go query editor. I don't have any databases set up, so it's not going to be able to scan anything. Okay, so let's try and create a database. Database. Let's see. Huh. Let's see. Why isn't this creating it? Oops, there's other queries. Nope, that's not needed. Okay, so it should be able to create this. There's some queries. Saves queries. No. Bucket owner. Let's see. Let's browse S3. Let's use that bucket. Oh, I don't have a bucket in this. Jeez Louise. Let's create a bucket. Practice. Security. Bucket. All right, so we have this bucket. Equals disabled, public access disabled, versioning disabled. Let's see. Next at gmail.com. Name AWS Security Practice. Now, tags are always important. Server-side encryption, that's good. Bucket key, we'll enable that. Okay. Okay, we'll set this up. Look through S3 again. Let's try this. Select this. Okay, you can set up lifecycle configuration. So I'm already the bucket owner. We'll save that. Okay. Let's go back and see if that has any impact on it. So run, create database, did not work. Huh. There we go. Okay. So we created the database. Sorry about that. I had a little funkiness in here. Okay. Database. This is the database. Okay. So we can also, I have a command that should work with, let's get this bucket name. Wait a second. Okay, give me a second to get this query in here. Okay, so what this should do, and let me try and expand this out. Okay, so this will create an external table if it doesn't exist, and it'll have all these rows. No, rows? Yes. So bucket owner, bucket string, request date. Let's run this. Yeah. Only one table is okay. Let's run this. Run. Okay, so we got this table. Let's see what the table looks like. All right, so there we go. So we got the bucket owner, bucket, request date time, remote IP. We got a lot of great information for this. Okay, and so I replaced the name. See my bucket that I created earlier, but the rest of this should be good, right? So remember, if you're so for this particular one, if S3 data is encrypted using SSE KMS, ensure Athena has the necessary permissions to decrypt the data. Okay, so in this, we can go in the console in the tables list, and then we can look at the table. We can click on the dots next to the table name. Okay, well, that's not. I want to get a preview. Where's the preview? Oh, maybe it's. Who's this? I don't see a preview. Hmm. There's no views. Okay. Okay. I don't see a preview. Does anyone else see a preview? That's the tables views. So this is. I guess this would be the closest thing. This just shows that everything that's here as it should be defined, right? All right. So we can run an analytical query as well. So let's open this up onto the follower. So this will go for HTTP status and the count, the request count from that database and the status on this. All right, we'll run this. Okay, this ran. Okay, so this will provide insight into the distribution of HTTP codes, status codes in the access logs. Okay, so table, recent queries. Okay, so let's see this. There's the stats for it. And this should be listed here in the results, right? And then for query, there's the results that should be there, right? And you could download this with the CSV. All right, but then within here, you can also do some optimizations, right? And this becomes more about their database work, right? So you can use columnar formats, so you can convert your data to columnar formats like Parquet or ORC to reduce the amount of data scanned. You can partition your data, so you can organize your data into partitions like by date to improve query performance. You can compress your data by decreasing storage costs and improving query efficiency. So it's like after you get this and export this out and sort it. And then you can consolidate small files. So if you combine small files into larger ones, you can reduce the overhead. So here's a little note. When using compressed or columnar formats, ensure that the tools and services accessing the data support the formats and have the necessary permissions. And there's an optional portion where you can set up federated queries where Athena will allow querying data from other sources using federated identities, right? So you could deploy a data source connector for like Amazon RDS, DynamoDB, and use the AWS serverless application repository, right? And then at that point, you could configure the connector with permissions and settings, and then you could run queries across different data sources. Let me see if I can get you some documentation for that. So this will be very useful for anyone who wants to get deep into data analysis, data engineering within AWS. And there's also some information about doing this on PostgreSQL, right? But remember, when you're doing this type of situation, your IAM roles and your policies have to be correctly configured to let Athena access the external data sources securely. All right, so how is this related to the exam? So if you can understand and implement the steps above that we've just covered, then you'll do very well. So it means data encryption, right? Those KMS keys, the IAM roles, um, and then the buckets as well. Server-side encryption, KMS, access control, right? So your IAM policies, if you're doing federation, and granting least privilege to any agents or any roles, any groups that need to access those resources, and your monitoring and logging, right? So Athena can analyze logs after the fact. So if you had your Lambdas dumping in that bucket, then you could use Athena to do queries on those logs, right? This would be good for your security auditing and your compliance. And then you could have secure data integration, right? So that talks about with the access control with IAM and the data encryption, this all ties together. So if you set up federated queries to securely access data across various services, like the Postgres or what is this over here? Athena federated this information, then you could be prepared to address a lot of security related monitoring, dashboarding, and querying, and then also be ready for the exam. Okay, so let's go back to something we've already covered a little bit and come back into this. So we have the bucket, nothing's in that bucket. So we'll be okay with that. All right, so we'll go back to CloudTrail because we've already touched this. So you type this in the CloudTrail, right? Or look in the 9 diamonds and go to security compliance. No. Networking. No. Management and governance. There you go. Management and governance, CloudTrail. Okay, so within this, you can create a new trail. Let's see, just create it off of here. And then I believe there's some documentation for this that you could use, right? And then use this for the console. All right. And you could enter just like a generic name and be okay with this. Why is this here? All right. And don't worry, these links will be there. So the trail name, let's call it Security Audit Trail. All right. And then this is on this. There's no cost curve. Okay, let's create the trail. All right. Okay. So you could choose a lot of different stuff here, right? We created this. We can update a lot of different stuff. Okay. So you could go in here, use an S3 bucket. Let's browse this. Use cloud logs, right? You can set prefixes to this, and this allows you to sort and separate things. You can encrypt files, right? Which I typically recommend for anything on the cloud, all right? And then from here, let's see, if you're log file validation, you can have your KMS key and bucket. That's useful for the encryption as well. And then notifications of deliveries, right? This is all incredibly useful material, right? Let's just save this. That's what I thought. Existing. I don't think I have one set up here. Let's try this. Security audit trail. Let's try that. Okay. And so then, let's see. Wait, oops. Let's go back here. Let's go back. CloudWatch Logs. No CloudWatch Logs group. API activity. No, we're doing okay. Read, exclude. No, that's good. Management events is captured here. Read write is selected. So, okay. So with read write selected, this is going to let all management events be able to be recorded. Okay. And then let's see, data events. Let's see, data events. We can go here. We want to record any of the S3 object level API activity, right? And so we'll have data events. Select. Oops, what did I just select? I thought I selected S3. Excuse me. So we select like S3, and then we have the log events. We can log only read only. There's a lot of different ways. So we'll log all. Selector name. Let's say security audit trail, and then S3. Where's the? Well, let's click save for that. Oops. Click save for that. All right. So we'll have this set up. So, and then you can also, that's a data event right here. You can also do this. Lambda, you can do a Lambda event. All right. And so from here, you can do log all events for Lambdas. You can name this as well. So Lambda S3. Okay. So this would be Lambda events, right? And then you could do, let's see, inside events. All right. So this would be to detect any unusual activity in your account. All right. And so you should be aware of this as another useful tool to make sure that you can detect unusual events. So inside events. So look at this, inside types, API calls, API errors. You can save this, okay? And then, let's see. Then in CloudTrail, let's click on the hamburger, and you can see the event history, right? So in the event history, you can see the past, where is the, it's typically the past 90, yeah, there you go. Last 90 days of management events, okay? And so from here, you can use different filters within your event history and start to look last 30 minutes. Let's see, okay? And then you can look for um, certain events like terminated instances or create users or create buckets or anything along those lines, all right? Now, then we can go to insights. All right, so CloudTrail Insights helps identify unusual activity in your AWS account by analyzing management events and detecting anomalies in API call patterns. Okay, so here would be some documentation that you could use to go deeper into this. So you can have, I give you the documentation so you understand it. I'm just showing you how to do it. If you understand why you do it, then you have a lot more impact on what you can do. Okay, so let's go to Insights here. All right. And then from here, you can enable insights. Let's see. So there's no events available yet. So let's go, hold on. We'll go to trails. Okay, let's go to trails. We'll select trail we created. Insight events. Yeah. So this is enabled. We chose all this. So this, okay. So because we don't have anything flowing through here, there's nothing that can actually be showing up. But if we had something happening here, then we would be able to see this in Insights. All right. So that's why we have something that's not quite working. So we talked about this earlier. You can also use Amazon EventBridge to respond to specific CloudTrail events in near real time. Okay. So where is EventBridge? Let's go look at how you can find this in the GUI's search function. See Amazon EventBridge, serverless service or building event-driven application. So event-driven means this thing responds and delivers. Okay, so would it be analytics? I don't think so. Would it be, is there a serverless? No. Application, oh, there you go. EventBridge and application integration. Okay, so within here, you can create different rules and how this activate how you need. All right, so let's click on rules here. Let's click create a rule. And then for, you can name this, let's just name this event bridge. We'll just name it that. Okay. Let's see, the event bus. So this will be how the bus, this is the rules apply to. Okay. So enable the rule in selected events, rules of the event pattern. Let's go to this. So we'll get AW events or other. So use patterns. Sample event. Oh, okay. So which AWS service? So event, select the provider, AWS, let's say API calls. Let's say CloudTrail. There we go. CloudTrail, select an event type. Let's say all events. Woo, that'd be a lot. All right. And you can edit this document as well, right? So you can edit this directly. So you can make it very specific. And then you can add, let's go forward. All right. So you can add a target at this point, right? So you could use a target service to do something, right? Like SNS. So let's have an SNS topic, send notifications, or you could do a Lambda function as well. And so you could target this in this account or another account. So we don't have one, which is unfortunate. So we could create a new role, select or type to search. Do we have a role for this? No, let's create a new role just for this. You create next. I created an invalid target, didn't I? Darn. So you could do like an image builder. There's a lot of interesting stuff. You could do API gateway for lots of API calls. This is a way that you can set up automatic responses to specific events that happen in your account. That's the long and short of it, right? So you can see here when it'll connect all of this and make it work. But golly. And then, well, I guess we can skip this. The next important part would be tags, and then reviewing everything could be configured. All right, so let's skip to reviewing. Can I do that? Okay, we can't do that. Let's just cancel out. It'll be more confusing to set up everything to have this running, but you're trying to set up automation so you don't have as much hand clicking. Okay. Um, so we did a good amount on this as far as what we wanted for CloudTrail, for EventBridge, and I basically want you to know that CloudTrail is crucial for the exam and for work, essentially, right? Monitoring and logging is one of the key things, right? You can implement comprehensive logging strategies that are incredibly useful for your team, your team, and your organization, right? And then you can have security incident responses. So that's where you can see that EventBridge could be something that you would use within your workflow, right? So that CloudTrail and the logs, and then having EventBridge, you can investigate security incidents or respond to them. Anything from unauthorized access to vulnerabilities, the list can go on and on. Right? And then additionally, we went into some of the S3 with the monitoring and logging for compliance and audit. So you need to meet compliance for industry standards, and you maintain that with detailed logs of all account activity, and you have to store those logs in a storage bucket like S3. And then all of these can, or a lot of these can integrate with one another, like EventBridge, Lambda, Athena for automated responses, logging, querying, and advanced analysis. So if you master these, you can definitely take your organization to a higher security posture and demonstrate you have proficient security practices. Let's go to Macie. I think Macie is a good one. Let's see. You'll find Macie here. So this is basically your data loss and protection system. Okay, so let's go find this here. Would be in, I want to say it would be in security, but yeah, here we go. Security, identity, compliance, and Macie. Okay, so this is going to cost, and here you go. Preventive control monitoring, 10% per bucket, objects right here. So it does a lot of handling of sensitive data. Right, so you could get started with a 30-day trial. You could choose whether you want to enable it for just this account or organization-wide for like multiple accounts. And then Macie will monitor your S3 environment and other storage to make sure that your sensitive data is protected at scale. That's the cut and paste, right? So it'll check things like you can choose the S3 buckets you want. You can filter this by account, by region, or you can manually select this. You could choose managed data identifiers. So that could be your PII, your personally identifiable information. That could be names, that could be credit card information, addresses, AWS credentials, bank account numbers. The list goes on. There's hundreds of different things that you don't realize that are types of information that you can easily pass. Then you can add custom data identifiers, and then you can have allow lists for certain safe values. And then you could configure the job, name it, describe it, create a description for it. And then you could do this on a one-time instance, or you could schedule this for a recurring process. And you'd create that job and run it. So let's see. Gosh, I don't want to enable this. I hate to say it. I'm a little cheap, but we'll enable it. All right, so from here, you could do, so let's say custom identifiers, right? So let's go here. Let's create a custom identifier. So let's say John Doe, right? So you can enter this, and other users might not be able to see this, or might be able to see the data in these fields if you have this available. All right. And so you could do description, enter the regex to define. Oof, gosh, I don't want to enter that. So regex would allow like certain allowed characters. Let's say for employee IDs, let's say this would work. All right. So it's allow D5 to employee ID number and 5, right? And then you could have optional keywords, proximity rules, all sorts of things, right? And then you can use custom settings for it, use medium severity, and then claim submit, and you'd be good to go, right? Then you could have an allow list. Okay. The allow list would let you upload a plain text to S3 containing allowed values. So it could be something like phone numbers or any of those identifiers that we talked about earlier. So you want to make sure it's not something like insanely valuable to the public market. Okay. But you could provide that. Let's say you provide this name. So let's say phone numbers. And you get the regex. So it could be 0 through 1. Oops. 0 through 1. Oh gosh, I gotta remember this. Yeah, I can't remember this, but you'd have to do, no, 0 through 9, right? So any number that creates this, and then you'd have to limit this by the character. So that would be 10 digits, right? And then this is not the correct regex. Please do not. You need to do, let's see. So I just can't remember that off the line. There we go. So this could be something like this. Okay, this would be good. I mean, this is just a sample. So don't beat me up. I'm not a professional. All right, so this would say so that zip code or country code, and then 234. Oh, so that would be so you do 334. That's how it would be. 334. Oh no. So this would basically cover the different number formats throughout the world. So this would be, it looks like UK. This would be America. So like 3 digits, like 702, 123, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. This would be a similar setup to country code, probably non-Western nations. Okay, then you can tag this as needed and be good to go. Let's click cancel. Okay, and then you can go findings, right? So your findings in your Macie console, this will be categorized by this is so the sensitive data findings. So it would be like PII, credentials. So PII would be phone numbers, addresses, credit card numbers, social security numbers, all that. And then public policy findings. So that could be unencrypted or public S3 buckets. And you can see this low, medium, high severity right here. Oops. You haven't configured a repo for sensitive data discovery. Yeah, I need to discover that. Let's see. I've been signed out. That's interesting. All right, so my apologies, had to log back in. Got booted from the system. Hopefully none of you are trying to steal my information. So let's go back to Macie. We were. Okay. Okay. So we're talking about findings. That's where you could find everything. And you could do automated responses via EventBridge, right? So you could do, so we have that in our saved features. So you could do a rule with, you could create a rule and set this, let's say, security audit trail, Macie, right? And then move forward. And you could set this service from Macie, right? And then from here, as a source, you could say event type, Macie finding, and set it to oh gosh, I'm not gonna get this right. But this is just an example because I'm not gonna get the proper nomenclature. Very sensitive. So critical. Okay. And so this you could have stored here, click next, and then from here, you can set an SNS topic so that if Macie scans this and it's a critical, say social security number, you set the topic with or a Lambda function, Lambda, all right? And you'd have to put that code in for the Lambda function and have it set up to deliver. That could be an email, that could be a pager message, that could be a Slack message, that can even be your SMS to your phone. That would be a little bit different, I think, than SNS topic. And then you click, you go through the tags, create the rule, and you would be good to go. All right. And then Macie will ultimately store all results to the S3, right? So it'll store detailed sensitive data discovery results in a JSON format. And in Athena, you can define a table pointing to the S3 bucket. And then you can query this using standard SQL to find sensitive data patterns across the org. And then start doing your allow lists or your custom data identifiers and start. So let's see, it has a, okay, so existing bucket. Let's go here. Ah, that's not going to work. Okay. And then you can ultimately use a multi-account delegated administrator. So that's what it was prompting me for when I was trying to get started. So if this is just my personal account, you can actually go to settings. Let's see, permissions, right here. So you can, if in your org, whoever would be, let's say your FinOps person or your security ops person, this could be the person who administers this as your org's manager for the account. And you could have Macie scanning over multiple accounts. And then you can add member accounts or invite them. And then you can view and manage Macie findings across all accounts and then store them in central encrypted buckets. So next piece is, okay, so the key areas of Macie. Macie is good for data protection, right? So it detects and classifies sensitive data like PII, credentials. It also monitors and logs, and this can integrate with EventBridge and store the logs in S3. It's good for incident response, meaning it can generate findings that can trigger SNS and Lambda. It's good for security automation, so it can automatically discover risky S3 buckets, misconfigurations. It's also good for multi-account strategy, so it can support delegated administration and organization-wide visibility. And then it's good for governance and compliance. So it's very useful for demonstrating you're compliant with GDPR, HIPAA, or SOC 2. Okay, so on the exam, remember that this focuses around PII, personally identifiable information. Learn how to create custom data identifiers. Learn about finding suppressions, the integrations with Bridge and Security Hub, the automating response workflows, and then how do you distinguish policy and sensitive data findings? Okay, so next we're going to go into VPC Flow Logs. So VPC Flow Logs, how did you get through this from? So VPCs, right? You can go to the VPC console in the left side of the menu. you should be able to scroll down low. Why is this not here? Let's see my VPC. I only have a default one. Jeez. Practice security. 20. That's default. We'll be okay. Okay. Okay, so here's your flow logs. Okay. So what we can do is create flow logs, right? So when you do this, you can choose what type of flow log name you want. Practice security. This is this. So you can do the type of traffic to capture because this will mirror a lot of it. So you can do the accepts, the rejects, or all. You can do the aggregation. 10 minutes is usually good for broad and not as much volume. 1 minute is if you want very detailed. And then you could have this send to an S3 bucket, CloudWatch. Let's do the bucket. Source policy. So let me go to my bucket. So I'm surprised it wouldn't let me select it from there. Okay. This is the ARN. Okay. Right here. And then you can do your formats. You can include any metadata that you'd like, which would be this ECS. So that doesn't really need to be here. Text is typically different. Parquet is efficient for Athena queries, which is why you would want to select that. And then let's see, your recording format. Again, this is about volume. So your partitions to help reduce your query costs. And how would you want to do this? Basically, do you want to do every 24 hours, 1 hours? I would go for 1 to not have as much process through this. You can create the flow log from here. All right. And then there's some documentation that you can view. And we'll show you just what the titles are that you might see. Create a trail to log management events. Okay. Work with CloudTrail Insights. So covered some of this. Regex, oh, that was me. Create a flow log that publishes to CloudWatch Logs, which we changed to S3. Work with flow logs. So this would be IAM permissions, looks like. Step-by-step guide to writing VPC flow logs to an S3 bucket, which we did. Create a flow log that publishes to S3, which we did. I clicked that twice. And then querying Amazon VPC Flow Logs. So this would be something that would likely tie in with Athena. And you could go from there. Okay. And then I would say, please note that AWS automatically creates the necessary bucket policy to allow VPC Flow Logs to write to a specific S3 bucket. Okay. Alternatively, we can go back to Flow Logs. Okay. We could edit. No, we don't need to edit the VPC settings. Flow Logs. Okay. So we could alternatively, security, watch, right? So you could do all the same stuff. Send it to CloudWatch and then centralized logs and then use an existing service role. Admin. Let's see if admins. Service role for VCP transit gateway. Let's try that. Okay. So now we have flow logs going to 2, right? One to the S3 bucket, which we can change here. S3, and then we can have this going to CloudWatch. And so we've configured all this, and then you can analyze with Athena. Let's go back here. I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to close Macie, go to Athena, settings, disable Macie. This is just for my personal disable. It's normally not case sensitive like that. Anyways, so that's good. All right. So if we're in here, we can go into the query, a little refresh, see the settings. Let's see, query result location, that looks good. And okay, let's create a new database. Okay. Closing tab, we'll delete the query and you'll lose it. Yeah, it's fine. And we could save all this stuff, which you can do here. Okay. We're going to do another query. Oh, okay, let's create a database. Okay, run. Okay, so we have a new database, VPC Flow Logs, and then we're going to create an external table if it doesn't exist already. Let's see if this runs. Okay, and so this will be the table. Okay, VPC Flow Logs. Okay, so this has the version integer, account as a string, interface ID a string. So this goes on and on. It's partitioned by year, month, date, and then you have raw formatting. Oh, I didn't set it at the right bucket. Oof. Let's do this one more time. Okay, hold on. Okay, let's try this one more time. Okay, so this should be, let's see if this is in this bucket. Unsaved. Okay, so this created this. Okay, so this got some interesting stuff in here. Okay. Okay. So this looks like it created AWS Logs bucket. 1, 2, 3, 4. Unsaved. Okay, and then we can add partitions to the table to query specific dates. So let's see. All right, so this would alter this to look for anything made on May 28th or let's get for the correct bucket. Okay. Okay, we've run this. And so this will adjust the date and path as we need if you need to do that. And you can run a query to analyze the flow logs to receive rejected traffic. Okay. So this would be select from the VPC flow logs any rejected traffic on today's date. We'll run that. No results, obviously, because there's nothing in here. Right? So how's this relevant? Okay. So this helps you understand and utilize VPC flow logs for the security specialty. You can do this for network monitoring, so you can capture and analyze IP traffic to and from network interfaces. You can use this for security analysis when you're identifying unauthorized access attempts like port scans or unusual patterns. For compliance and audits, you can maintain logs for compliance requirements and forensic investigations. And you can integrate this with AWS services like Athena and CloudWatch. Okay, so there's flow logs, Athena, CloudWatch. How do these tie together, right? We just did that a lot. Okay, so we're going to do another piece. Okay, this will be Route 53 resolver querying. So this is going to be an interesting one because not a lot of places use Route 53 unless they have big money. So Route 53 resolver, open that up. So this will be for DNS queries. Let's go in here. And you can find this in the hamburger, in my compute, probably networking. Route 53. No, no, not robotics. No. Would it be Route 50? Would it be under security? Hmm. I don't see it. Wow. Maybe migration? No, no, no. Huh. No, I'm not finding it. That's interesting. Normally I'm pretty good at finding these. Hmm. Not compute, which I would have thought networking would have been it from the start. I don't see it here either. It's not networking either. This is Route 53. Well, we found it in the GUI search bar, so let's just go there. Okay, so Route 53 resolver query logging lets security teams monitor and audit DNS queries from within the VPCs, on-premises networks via endpoints, or services using DNS firewall. So it's essential for threat detection. So that's malware calling command and control domains, for security auditing, for DNS troubleshooting, and for forensics and compliance. Okay, so your best bet is to go type it up here. Click the hamburger menu, and then let's see. Why am I not seeing it? Resolver. Okay, there. Gosh, man, I am blind today. Okay, so here's query logging. Let's try this. Okay, so we're going to query log within the region of the VPCs that we have. So we're going to create a query log, right? So we'll call it VPC DNS logs dev. Okay. And then we could choose a destination. So there's a couple of different types. You can do CloudWatch, S3, or Amazon Data Firehose delivery, right? So CloudWatch is for real-time monitoring, metric filters, and contributor insights. This requires an IAM role with put log events permissions. Then you have S3. This is for long-term storages and Athena analysis. This is recommended for high query rates. So ensure that the S3 bucket policy allows deliver.logs.amazonaws.com. And then you have Kinesis Data Firehose. This is for streaming logs to Redshift, Opensearch, or custom applications. But this requires a setup of a delivery stream. Okay, so we'll do, yeah, we'll do this, centralized logs. And then you can create or select a resource. So VPC still log for queries. Let's add a VPC. Okay, we'll add ours. Okay, and you'd add the tags, and then we only have one non-default. But here's a couple of things to note, right? A VPC can only have one query logging destination per destination, right? So only one S3 bucket, not two. And you cannot log queries from different VPCs to the same log destination unless using Resource Actions Manager for a cross-account access, okay? So we'll configure this. Okay, so this is created. And so logs from this should appear in moments. Okay, so there's examples of the type of logs that can be there, like the query timestamp. This would show when DNS queries would be configured. Well, you can see some of this. Okay. Okay. You'll see the VPC ID, so the VPC that originated the query. Then this will be stored in the JSON. You have the query name. So where is it going for the domain name? You know, google.com or something like that. The query type, so this will be like your A records, C names, those type of things, and text or whatnot. Response code. So if you have a no error, serve fail, you have response data. So if IPs or results are returned, and then you'll have source IP, source instance ID. So the origin of the request. So like the EC2, Lambda, etc. Okay. And then you can also go back to CloudWatch. And this is not CloudWatch. This is CloudTrail. All right, so CloudWatch has log insights, and we can do that as well for what we just did. You can also use Athena for S3 for batch analysis. All right, and those would be very useful for what we've done. Okay, so let's go into one of our next items. So we'll go to Opensearch. Okay. Okay. Type this Opensearch. So Opensearch, Elasticsearch. This is managed for managed clusters. And you could do the, let's see if I can find this in the hamburger. Maybe analytics. Maybe analytics. It's not here. Oh, no. Opensearch, there we go. So it's in analytics and in Opensearch. Okay, so Opensearch presents both IAM and network-based security challenges. It's directly referenced in the exam. So this is important for secure logging, analytics, and access control. It's in this, you're supposed to understand secure service configurations, how to implement least privilege, how to enforce network level controls, and how to apply fine-grained access controls. So when you do this, you can integrate logging, monitoring, and IAM policies with managed services. Okay, so we're at the main console. From here, you create a domain. All right, so let's say, what is it called? Practice search. And so you have two different types, right? You have easy create, you have a standard create. So you're really going to try the easy create typically. This will be lower cost. This will be a little simpler to set up. Fewer availability zones as well, okay? And then you'll have the standard, which will be more for production, okay? So this is going to be a lot better. So we're just going to do the easy create, and then we're going to select the version that's the latest, VPC access, that's recommended, dual stack, that's good. So this can be, well, it doesn't really need to be dual stack, but we'll be fine. And then we'll select our VPC with at least 3. Oh, wow. I don't think any, oh, okay, so I'll have to go for the default. Oh my goodness. And then we'll set the IAM. I don't think I have an IAM. So we could create one, but that's gonna be a problem. That's okay. I should have created more subnets. And then default setting for easy create. So you see multi availability zones, 3. That means the subnets. The data nodes for search. That's gonna be a lot of workload. 2 active, 1 standby. The throughput, that's nice. EBS. So that would be 100 gigs per node. Oh, wow. That's a huge node. M7. And warm and cold storage. 3 master nodes. Okay. So we got 2 subnets here. This is not connected to anything yet. That's useful. Okay, but I'm not gonna go through with this. Yeah. Because with this, you have to go through and have this set up to have an IAM based access. So you'd want to have, let's say, a JSON document. So you could have a security admin. Let me show you this. What a JSON might look like for this. Yeah. So you'd have to have, for this user, security admin level. That's too restrictive or too permissive, right? Or you could have a read write to a specific index. Oops. Okay. So something like this. Okay. So you could have this set for data analyst, and then for this region, for this domain, and then you could do this folder. okay, for that specific, or index, sorry. And so you should know how to apply these and what level you should apply. So having a good grasp of IAM really helps. So that's that fine-grained access control. Okay, and with that, you can also create a master user, and then underneath that, set different policies like this read write only. And you can set your encryption, because it's going to do a lot of encryption at rest. You could do this with a KMS key, and there's going to be node-to-node communication. So you need to set encryption for that as well. And then you might be on the exam asked to talk about encryption standards like KMS, management standard, or key management system, and CMKs. So that would be customer managed keys. And then you might be asked to talk about TLS or MTLS, about that communication encryption transit. Okay, so after that, let's see. Okay, so we're over here at Opensearch. So with all that, you can come to your dashboard, and then in your dashboard, then you can start monitoring different identities. So you can see if HTTP is enforced. You can restrict access by a role like an analyst or an admin or editor or whatnot. Okay, and then you can go to updating how you want your security architecture to flow. So when you're doing all this searching, scanning, and then visualizing, then you can set up how do you want this to authorize, what policies are you going to apply, and then what filters are you going to have at the index level. And then this will integrate with your other services. Okay, so with this, you can have integration with CloudTrail, with logs. This will log configuration APIs to Opensearch domains. Then you can have CloudWatch can monitor cluster performance. So you saw, I got I wowed by that M6 cluster size. That's a hefty image instance. So you can look for shard health, CPU, storage, and then you have SNS. So you can send alerts for threshold breaches, and you can also apply Kinesis Firehose, so you can have real-time streaming to Opensearch with log analytics, metrics, etc. And your IAM is going to be, IAM assume is involved with almost everything, if not everything. And this will be measuring your access control for Opensearch APIs. Okay, so when you're looking at your security exam, big policies are avoid public access in general. Public is usually something you should be restrictive about. Look at your IAM policies. Make sure to go for least privilege. I showed you that IAM access policy. You should be good with that. Okay. Watch out for encryption in whatever you're using. Encryption at rest and in motion or in transit. And then look at how your environment's configured. Is it single account, multi-account? Who's the org? How do you have the groups leveled? How do you have RBAC, role-based access? And then how are you going to deploy in your environment and monitor? And then this lesson will come into place. All right. So this was a very good lesson. Next time, we'll be talking about security or infrastructure security. I look forward to talking to you soon.